And we're back. We got another one. But before we get going, we'll take care of some housekeeping notes. But we do have Michael Carney and Vince Bertocchini.
Thanks for having me back, bud.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
Thanks for having me here.
hey, not a problem, not a problem. So, housekeeping notes. Once again, I don't even know what episode this is. I think it's episode 16.
I think
So
you
bear,
said that on Monday. Let's call it 17.
I'll have to do the numbers and see. But definitely, thanks, audience, for watching us. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So definitely, as you know, if you have any comments, any questions based on what we're going to be going over today, please put it right in the comment section. We will get to them. This is an exciting day today. Just a reminder, Ultimate Mortgage Guide that's right there behind my shoulder is available. So if you do need a blueprint about mortgages and how to buy a house and just some of the new products that are available and out there and just what to do and what to expect, definitely check out the Ultimate Mortgage Guide that's available on Amazon. Also, too, we have our preferred listings. Let me go through them. We got 2436 Planters Mill Way in Conyers, Georgia, going for $399. Contact Angela Pinnell at 404-425-4660. We have 1100 South 3rd Avenue, Maywood, Illinois. It's going for $394.9. It's a 5-bed, 2-bath, and the seller is highly motivated. Contact Tamika Bishop 630-479-6352. We have 8228 South LaSalle, Chicago, Illinois, going for $250. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. Contact Amico Pope 808-428-3770. We have 5544 South California in Chicago, Illinois. This one's going for $394.9. It's a 5-bed, 3-bath house. Contact Victor Naranjo 708-830-4734. We also have 14327 Lincoln Avenue. My client has a house listed in Dalton, Illinois, going for $225. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath house. Contact Evelyn Woods 773-718-9742. And we have some condos. Don't forget about condos. We have 6945 South Dorchester Avenue. I believe that's Hyde Park. Unit 2S, Chicago, Illinois. Contact Evelyn Woods 773-718-9742. We also have 548 East 50th Street, Unit 3, Chicago, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath condo. That's a big condo. Contact Jessica Roberson, 708-722-5106. And don't forget, we also do commercial lending. A lot of people don't realize that. We do commercial as well as residential. So we do have 1413 East End in Chicago Heights. It's a commercial storage facility. Going for $165. Contact Amico Pope 808-428-3770. And we also have 1645 Western Avenue, Chicago Heights, Illinois. This is a commercial property. It used to be a Burger King, and now it could be the next hookah lounge. So contact Keith Terry 773-655-1360. And last but not least, if you're looking for a renovation, you're looking for a fix and flip, check out 7723 South Honoree. Contact Brittany Davis at 773-971-8714. So all those preferred listings are actually on our website at www.danteroyster.com, DanteRoyster.com. So you can definitely go right onto the website, take a look at our preferred listings. Also, you can take a look at our Epic Spotlight interviews that we do, our podcast that we're pretty proud of. That's available on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is Epic Spotlight. So you're looking at Epic Spotlight is our YouTube channel. And today we have a new one. Today our new interview came out. Olivia White, an Aurora resident, and she is a realtor. Had a great conversation with her. So when you have an opportunity, definitely check out Olivia White's latest interview. So after this, do that. And then now we're ready to go. So Michael, you're here. Can you give the audience just who you are and what you do?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dante and Vince, for allowing me this opportunity. Sure. Michael Carney. I'm a licensed architect in 19 states. I've been in the business 25 years now. Founded Studio Carney Architecture in 2014. The reasoning behind it is I really want to connect with my clients. I fully believe that a genuine relationship with my clients allows us to uncover the best possible design for their project. And so feeling that if I could have the direct contact with clients, that we as a team, my team, could really help support their vision, their needs, providing the best possible solution for them. My background in the business, I've worked on projects over $80 million developments locally in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I've worked on a variety of government projects in the city of Chicago, both for Cook County as well as the federal government. Working on, while doing that, also working on multiple residential projects, Chicagoland, North Carolina in the mountains, working on lakeside developments, open field developments for national developers, and taking on a lot of renovation and remodel projects, throughout the northwest suburbs, keeping that challenge, looking for, self-education, always looking to help people and solve their needs for growing families, working with investors, trying to help put forth, cost-effective building solutions for the investors so that they can turn them around. Working with other real estate developers with their own tenant build-outs. Again, trying to keep myself available to help everybody in their needs in the design process. And it's been a great journey, and looking forward to future projects in helping others achieve their goals and learning as I go along with it.
No, I appreciate you coming on, and this is, I think it's not only good for realtors, definitely, hopefully they're watching today, but also for buyers. Just looking forward to seeing this presentation and just obviously just your experience alone.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm seeing more and more is people as buyers, are starting to see. I think probably since the COVID pandemic, where a lot of people were in an urban environment of like, all right, now it's time to get out in the suburbs, have some green space, and still working downtown and wanting to stay close, minimizing their commute. So they're purchasing vacant lots that are still available. They're purchasing existing homes to tear them down, with the intent of putting in their dream home. And with the ease of ease of surfing the internet, finding pre-designed plans, and yes, that's what I want, I'm just going to put this in. It's running into a lot of issues and causing a lot of headaches for homeowners. Currently dealing with a couple projects now. That one is a investor who purchased a lot with the intent to develop it. They initially thought that they would put in 3 homes. It's a larger lot. Unfortunately, they closed on that lot before doing any of their own due diligence to find that we can only do 2 residences on it. So already their investment, that their end result for the return is already taking a big hit. I have another client who purchased a home and literally just started working with them 2 weeks ago. They purchased the home with the intent of tearing it down to the foundation and working with an architect to design a new home on top of the existing foundation. What they didn't realize is the municipality that it's located in requires it be treated as a new home. So now we're adding in sprinkler systems, new sewer lines, new electrical lines, new water service. And the big component here that they are probably more taken back by is the municipality requires public hearing that we need to go in front of to get public approval of putting a new house in for them. And this is adding 3 to 4 months to their project schedule before we start doing anything.
Jeez.
And it comes out of nowhere. And, I just delivered this information to them this past Friday. They digested it over the weekend. We reconnected, and we're gonna push to see what we can do to navigate between those constraints. But that is really kind of what we're running into more and more with projects, in the Chicagoland area, where we're going in, homeowners have already purchased the land, and we're finding that what their hope is not really achievable. And, we can certainly go through a municipal variation process, but we have to prove a hardship. They don't, the municipalities don't just approve everything to these buyers. We have to prove there's a reason why we're seeking relief for something. And, it's trying to get in front of that issue, and I think for us, my approach to this is getting relationships with realtors and say, put this information in front of them to allow them to be the leader and guide their buyers or sellers, depending on what direction they want to go, but giving them that knowledge and then providing them with a phone number and email to say, and say a 2-minute, a 5-minute phone call with a design professional, could help steer, yourself or a buyer or seller in a more educated direction to minimize these headaches that we're running into.
I think of two questions. One, if we have realtors on the call today, if the realtors are thinking like, how many of you have ever had a deal stall because of building code issues? I mean, if you've been there, I know I've been there and dealt with that. I got a client now trying to do a refinance and is working with the city of Chicago and just, trying to get compliant. And they actually told him he had to move the garage over. It's like, hey, the garage is not, satisfactory, to the inspectors. You got to move it over, after it's already built, and just that nightmare of a thing. Sometimes when you try to, you have to go step by step with these. And then, I think about investors, who here has underestimated, renovation costs on a flip or a rental project, and this is in a sense what you're talking about, whether it's a primary or investment, of just having these costly surprises along the way. So I'm curious, Michael, when in the process do you feel like you need to, really be a part of this?
Our approach is to try to get into the team right about the time that, if we're going to take it as a buyer approach, asking that question up front of, having a design professional, myself, or a structural engineer, on site, to ask those questions. Can I take out this wall? What types of issues might we see? We offer a feasibility study, and it goes through all the local building codes, the zoning ordinances. And our approach to this is, a $750 investment up front could save you tens of thousands of dollars on the back end. And it's understanding, having a document to say, this is what you can and can't do. And we put together, a written report, but we also do a graphic report that shows a certain property outline, shows the area that's buildable, and then it outlines how big that house can or cannot be. And as an example of this, we worked with a couple years ago, and they were looking at a blank piece of land. The piece of land is in Bloomingdale, and what we ran into is when I saw it, big red flag came up. Is this is the only vacant site in a development that probably was constructed in the early 1990s, late 1990s, and that's a flag to me. Why is this one site not been built on? And so through this, they engaged us rather. We went through the process, looked at everything we possibly could, and I made it a recommendation that we do soil borings and bring in a soils engineer to put a couple holes around the property. And sure enough, it came back that the developer of I think it was like a 25 to 30 home community, used that site as a dumping ground. So what we learned is we're going to have to excavate down 16 feet of all the garbage soil to pull all of this out in order to construct a home on that site. So we start that process up front, because then they have the decision of, you know what, this is going to be an additional $150,000. Do I want to take that on? Do I not want to take that on? And so what we like to do is we like to get in, at that point before closing. And we certainly understand, with realtors and mortgage lenders, that during that due diligence process, time is of the essence. Like we can't drag this out. You've got a 60 or 90-day closing. This information needs to be known up front. So we work to turn these around within 2 weeks, if not sooner. And for an investor, what we like to do is, as they're looking at properties, they can reach out to us. We can have a phone conversation, starting the process. We do our exploration, our own due diligence of what cannot be done, providing them with that report, so then they can then make the educated decision of whether or not they want to buy it and pursue it, or if they want to look elsewhere for something different.
Got it. Vince, you got anything before we start this slides?
I got a little bit to add on it, and then because me and Mike were talking offline. I mean, obviously the message here is to plan ahead. It sounds like the when you get into a problem, the municipality takes time, which adds cost, and essentially, in a joking manner, they're almost like an unwanted HOA. Because you need to get everything through them in order to go further. In the meantime, you're having operational cost of waiting on construction to be done and timing of everything else. So all portion of the planning, and basically what I was trying to get at.
Also too, what I heard is, we always talk about our financial team or our team, and it's like, little did you know, you need an architect, of some magnitude, a part of your team, especially if you're looking to do new builds.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people, I think it's just a taste, right? It's a taste bud. Some people just don't like existing homes. Some people have a preference of, to your point, more space, especially with the remote. Remote, I think, is here to stay. I mean, I want to say, the can of worms have been opened, and I think people are looking for that. It may not be every job like it was at one time, but definitely, I think people are looking for flexibility, and we'll even take a little bit of a pay cut to get flexibility of having the ability to work from home. And if you do, having that capability of having more space, definitely you'll look into maybe some new builds and new construction.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, why don't you start your slideshow? I'm curious to see.
Yeah. So this we put together, and we presented to realtors in the area. And it's really just to kind of identify some of the, issues that we're seeing. And again, it goes back to that educating as many people as we can, trying to get in front of any potential headaches that may come up during a project. So one of the things that we go into is, it's not always ready to build on. Whether, the story I just told about the blank lot, I've got a couple other ones where, we're looking at tearing down a house to find that it has asbestos. Once asbestos is found, it's a whole different process. The house has to be remediated by an asbestos contractor professional. And you have to do all of that before any of the construction comes. Same thing with lead paint. So these are, things that it doesn't always mean that ready to jump in, start building. Another part of this is, as Vince, as you pointed out, working with these municipalities, building codes are constantly changing. The international building codes, they update every 3 years. And the municipalities don't necessarily have to adopt the most current code. However, the state of Illinois they have 1 year upon release of a building, or it's part of the building code suite, but it's the International Energy Code. Now, this is what governs insulation in our walls, our attics, our basements, our crawl spaces. And in an effort to make our homes and buildings as a whole more energy efficient, these have continually increased over the last decade. And they're going to continue to increase up until about 2030, which is their intent to have a net zero home or net zero building. So the big things that are changing are the insulation values. And, this has a huge impact on both new home builders as well as existing remodelers, because if we're having to conform to all of these things, it changes. It's most likely not going to align with the existing construction that you have, or from an investment stance, you're going to be spending a lot more money in these building materials.
Real quick, we did
yeah.
get a question from the audience. So how would you answer that?
The best way to stay on top of it is every municipality has their own different adopted building codes. I work with the people in our office. One of the interns that was just with us, I was saying it's as quick as, type in the municipality and just say adopted building codes. And it'll take you to a municipality's building department's website, and that'll list all of the adopted building codes that you will have to conform to. But how a municipality goes about it is pretty much in the month of January every year. That's when they update their ordinances, and that's where they will update whether or not they're going to adopt the most current, or they're going to stay where they're at. There's some municipalities in the Chicagoland area that we're still looking at building codes from 2015. And then I've got ones that are already on 2024. And the International Building Code Suite updates every 3 years. So our next one that's going to be published is 2027. And I think that going directly to a municipality is the most efficient and effective way of finding out what they've adopted. But one caveat to that that I find every now and then is that building departments don't always update their websites. So they will list one on their website, but actually enforce another one, which from my perspective is pretty aggravating, because we design for that adopted building code, and if they're going to adopt something new, that potentially has some design ramifications that we would have to react to, which will most likely which will absolutely impact cost, but could potentially impact some square footages as well. I hope that was enough to not create more confusion.
You do got go ahead. Go ahead.
Kind of one of those things of the whole thing, like you want to put a fence in, make sure you call before you start digging so you don't hit a gas line and electric line. Kind of the same principle, right? Get with your municipality, find out what the rules are, and get with the professionals to figure it out.
Isn't that Julie?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to necessarily say that just because not everyone on here is from Illinois, but that's correct. That's Julie, right? Call before you dig so you don't hit a gas line or you don't hit an electric, whatever that may be, right? And you can't just throw it up today. You have to make sure it's the code.
And then, Michael, how early should a buyer bring in an architect when planning a renovation?
Buyer should, if you're out there looking to purchase the property with the intent of modifying it, I would consult with an architect prior to closing on that property. We talk building costs. What I have seen in the Chicagoland area over the past 2 years is we're averaging a $300 to $400 a square foot cost. And now, it's not apples to apples, but if you're renovating projects and you're building, outside of the envelope, you should be budgeting $300 to $400 a square foot. And knowing that before you purchase the home is very helpful.
Yeah, I would think obviously to answer that also with you is, we're going to get a pre-approval, right? We're going to see that the person qualifies, and if they're looking already mentally on a renovation, you're going to have to get that property. Unfortunately, especially in Illinois, you want to get it under contract. Right. There's not, we still have a shortage of inventory. So you can't, I've seen some people want to be so careful, and they want to get the architect out there and they want to get the contractor out there and they do all these things. And then someone else gets it under contract. You still got to put the offer in, you can use, some of the estimates that you just referenced, $300 to $400 square footage. So you have some type of idea of what you're walking into. But, once you have the property under contract, ideally, even within that, 5-day attorney review period, I definitely would want to bring you in and say, hey, these are my ideas. And then now you can kind of shoot them down. No, this is not going to work out. If it has a house, a new one can be built. All these kind of misconceptions that you're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
All right, continue, Michael, with your slide. I love this.
So, lot for sale, ready to build on. Not always the case. Especially if you're buying something that has an older home on it. Zoning requirements, building codes have changed. And, it's good to understand where they currently are. And what I do want to say is that it's not always possible to grandfather things in. There's certain requirements that you can, through some jumping through hoops, we can get things grandfathered. But, I like to approach it that it can't be. Try to design for that worst case scenario. And again, it's looking at what's there existing, what needs to be done. Like, are you planning on reusing a portion of it? Are you planning on doing something new? I have a project right now in Hoffman Estates where, an investor bought the property, as I pointed, to subdivide it, has an existing home. Where the home sits is not buildable. We're not allowed to put the home in the same spot. So it's forcing us to completely get rid of everything. And relocate things on the property, which then forced us to cut down a bunch of old growth trees that they really wanted to save, because as a selling point, when you look in these new developments, one of the things that sticks out is you don't have trees. So, if you have the opportunity to save those trees, we certainly want to do so. But where we're building in Hoffman Estates, they have a tree preservation plan. So now there's penalties for cutting down these trees, additional costs. They're replacements that have to be put in. So just because somebody did it before you doesn't necessarily mean that it can be done the same. The other thing that we're getting is, and this I think is a piece of information that is not highly touted or pushed out there as knowledge, but larger lots don't necessarily mean we can put any type of home on it. One of the things that we deal with, it's called floor area ratio. And in municipality zoning, they're going to look at the lot and they're going to say that 20% of it can hold a building or floor plates. And so these are things where, if we have a homeowner or a potential buyer who found this plan set online, they love it, it's their dream home. You want to make sure that that's going to fit on that site, because we run into it every now and then where clients will come to us and say, hey, we bought this with the intent of putting this building on the site. Doesn't fit. What do we do? You're back to square one, and you're engaging that design professional to then take the plan that you may have already paid money for and redoing it. Other things that we run into, home styles. We see a lot of places that people are into this modern farmhouse. We love this design. This is what our house wants to be. And whether it's an HOA, whether it's some municipality that they're in a historic neighborhood, doesn't allow it. So it's good to get in front of that to know what can and can't be done before you invest. For most people, this is probably one of their biggest investments they'll ever make in buying a house or doing a major renovation. So it's as Vince said, is doing that homework before you get to a point where you've committed. Something that we're often involved in on the North Shore of Chicago is finished basements. We've got all these existing beautiful homes in Winnetka, and from Winnetka, Glencoe, and all the way up to Highland Park, where these homes are over 100 years old. The basements were never meant for living space; they were meant for storage. And there's limitations on ceiling heights that impact that. And some of those municipalities won't actually let you finish your basement. because they don't conform to that 6'8" minimum height. So the solution is you actually have to dig down, which, if you've got a couple extra $100,000 to spare, then that's the way to go. But it puts the architect, in a position of dream crusher, where somebody buys this home and I'm going to turn this into my man cave, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and you can't. Like the city will not let you do that, in following permitted construction, which that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But I strongly, sit behind building permits, because it ensures that things are done right and that there's no problems down the end of the line.
So you do have a question from John. He said, how can investors avoid delays with city permits? Obviously, it depends on what city, but what would you say just in general?
Great question. One of the things that I've done in the past is we, as soon as we're looking to move forward, we have a conversation, or if I'm on retainer, I will have a conversation with the city, kind of identifying what pitfalls are going to come, and trying, like, we work very hard to get in front of all of that. But I think all of us are familiar with Chicago. If you're doing stuff in Chicago, it could take months. I'm currently working with a residential project in unincorporated Cook County, and it took 14 and a half months to get a building permit. And we were getting requests for information from the county of things that weren't even applicable to the project. And trying to find one of it's unincorporated, like I said, but it's on a private road, and they have a document that dates back, that was signed in 1957, and it was literally 2 months of trying to find like a descendant of that property to say that it's okay to build on. And we were pulling in everybody to try to find this, and finally it got to the point where we had to bring in an attorney to talk to the county to say, like, is this discrimination? Like, why is this taking so long? This should not be the case. But it's like every time that we provided the information, there was more requests for information. So to John, sorry to ramble on, but the best way is to, again, get with city planners up front, and see what their vision is, because that's going to be a delay too. And have the discussion with the permit reviewers and the building department to see what they're going to do. There are some third-party permit companies in our area that have been reviewing projects, so that could actually have an additional delay. Their time frame isn't always necessarily the same as the municipality. So typically in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, I see anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. But the only way really to try to avoid it is just get out in front of it as quickly as you can.
That's awesome. Michael, I have a couple quick questions just to, for the audience sake. Are you only licensed to do business in Illinois, or can you do other states?
I can do other states. I'm currently licensed in 19 states. Okay. Pretty much everything around the Midwest, from Minnesota to Texas. And then I have a bunch from Vermont, New Hampshire, down to Florida.
Okay, so we're licensed in Florida. We're licensed in Virginia. You could do Virginia as well.
Yes, I can.
We're licensed in Maryland.
Yep.
Okay, so then we're licensed in Michigan.
Yes.
Throw Texas in there. If I heard him right, he said Texas. So let's not forget about those guys.
The big state, yeah, we're licensed in Texas, so we can help you there.
Actually,
what about
just renewed my Texas license this morning. So
outstanding.
Yes.
Outstanding. We'll take you there. And what about Georgia?
Georgia, not as of yet.
Okay.
But certainly if project needs come up, it's with my educational background, I'm also recognized as a broadly experienced architect. So it's just a matter of filling out some paperwork. I've met all of the testing requirements that's necessary for all states, with the exception of California.
Got it. Yeah, I'm not planning on California anytime soon. We go as far west as Colorado.
Okay.
Would you handle?
I am not, but again, I've explored it, and it's literally it's like a 2-week process
Got
if
it.
it's something that is needed. Yeah.
No, good to know. So, I mean, obviously, when you're building out that team, not only will you need a loan officer if you're looking to build, we're providing you with an architect right here as well. So, just want to make sure that the audience knows that, that you do travel. And then my second question was, are you kind of a quote unquote one-man band, or do you have a team of your own?
I have a team of my own, and then when I need to scale up, I have a couple of other licensed architects that
Hmm.
I'll bring on to help. But I had an office, a secondary office in Asheville, North Carolina, for a few years while we were working on some developments there. Unfortunately, with everything that happened last fall, with all the rain and complexities of that, it really just came to a screeching halt. And seeing business increase here and needing more time for myself here in the Chicagoland area, I stopped growing the office in Asheville and have temporarily closed it
Sure.
until things can change.
Understood. Okay. Just want to get those things out there.
One other very important thing that I wanted to bring up is, if you're looking at a property, whether, unbuilt or already built upon, wetlands and flood zones. This is a huge thing. We're seeing a lot of it in Florida, where homes were damaged from recent hurricanes and what needs to be done to fix them. But it's also local here to the Chicagoland area. Worked with a couple homeowners that were on bodies of water. There are requirements, in a case in point, house on a river in a floodplain. They wanted to update their basement to a finished basement, going through the permitting process. Based on that review, it was through a county, and the county was going to require them to make it comply with current FEMA floodplain regulations. What that would require the homeowner to do is raise the existing house. Literally, we would have to raise the first floor and second floor up 2 feet above I don't want to say imaginary line, but we call them elevations, and it's a grid system across the United States, but it sets a plane that if you're on a water floodplain, you have to be 2 feet above it. And so obviously, if you're looking to just do an interior remodel, this is something that it could impact you. So it's good to know that, again, because these people, they purchased the house 10 years ago and are just kind of growing with their family, wanted to do this. And, in the end, they ended up selling the house and moving elsewhere because all of these restrictions kept them from doing what they wanted to do.
Got it.
So, kind of touching on that permitting, as I said earlier, it's not a quick step. If you're going to do it, you'd need to plan 2 to 3 months for uncertainties, plan for the worst, hope for the best kind of scenario. Again, depending on certain neighborhoods you go into, there could be covenants that restrict certain design styles. And all of this information is publicly available, but you have to know where to look to get it. So, reaching out to a local design professional is probably the easiest way to do it, and discussing with them to bring that knowledge to you so that you can make an educated decision on moving forward.
Michael, I got one question, if I can, just to kind of touch back on something. I mean, obviously, most of this is to the northwest, Cook County, Illinois, or our suburbs. I'm going to throw out 2 areas, Arlington Heights and Elmhurst. There's been a lot of renovation in those areas, as stacking houses and things like that. And we're still doing this on basically 1/4 of an acre to 1/3 of an acre in the traditional lot size.
Mm-hmm.
After all of this renovation that's gone on in those 2 areas, just in general, are we starting to see municipalities push back on being able to do these types of projects with not as much ease because of what's already been done?
Great question. And yes, the answer is some of them are starting to kind of put up barriers. The problem is, and from their standpoint, is they've already allowed these other projects to go forward. So precedent has already been set.
Correct.
And when we go in for hearings, that is the argument that we make is, well, precedent, you've already done it. So why are you going to not allow us to do the same thing? So yeah, it's something that I don't want to say it's a gray area, but it's definitely a conversation that is had with them, because I've worked in both, and both have their requirements that you have to meet in order to get these to move forward. So
yeah, I grew up around O'Hare, and from time to time I drive up and down North Avenue in Elmhurst.
Yep.
And you see these real big houses now going down the street on North Avenue, literally on the street, because they're built so close to the property lines.
Yeah.
Dante, we got any other questions there? I can't see them. Remember that.
Oh, you know what? This is a good question. What are the top zoning challenges realtors should prepare for?
Oh, great. This is another great question. The zoning things that we should all be looking for is how big of the house can we put on it, and our setbacks. So setbacks, what it is you have your property line, and on the front, the sides, and the rear of the house, zoning, depending on the district you're in, will say that you need to be so many feet from the side, so many feet from the back, so many feet from the front. So that's going to start to limit us of how big of an area we can go. The big one that stands out is earlier on the floor area ratio. And that is going to govern how big of a house we can put on there. And so, you can ask a planner with a municipality, to walk you through that. But, if you go with an architect, this is something that, all architects are familiar with, whether you're residential or commercial, because it does apply to both. But they will be able to calculate that for you with certainty. And I know in the real estate, process of buying and selling, the plat of survey is now a requirement at the very end. That is the most important document for the architect to do their feasibility study, because it's a legal document that describes how big that piece of land is. And we actually use that to work backwards to answer all of those questions of how big, where on the site it is. But really it's that the lot coverage and floor area ratio, lot coverage just being, driveway, patio, house. If we're adding a pool, if we're adding a shed, believe it or not, if you're adding a chicken coop, that's popping up today too. All of that accounts for what you can and cannot do. So the biggest challenge is that zoning, in the zoning, is that floor area ratio.
And I want people, the audience, and maybe they know, I just want to be clear, obviously you can, ideally for new construction, you're definitely a huge help to see, hey, can I build on this land? But you can also work on existing homes as well.
That's correct. And so we both, we do new and existing. And again, all of these same things apply to new and existing. So, where we run into things, and I probably more often than not is, we're really working with a lot of our clients to, what I call it is age in place. So if we're designing a new home, or if we're designing renovations to a home, I work with my clients so that it's handicap accessible. We're designing to 2025 accessibility requirements, that God forbid any one of them, something were to happen and that they were in a wheelchair, or just having mobility issues. We design it so that there's 3-foot doors, there's proper turning radiuses and clearances so that they can stay in their home throughout, their time there. But what we run into is that takes up extra real estate within that floor plan. And so we're adding onto these homes, but we don't have side or room on the sides of the house. We do have some room in the rear of the house. We rarely have room in front of the house. But it's those types of things that, again, we run into that situation more often than not. And part of our projects is that's our due diligence we do up front, so that they know what they're getting themselves into.
Thank you.
So briefly, this was that Plata survey. I think, as far as realtors are out there, and I'm sure with mortgage lenders as well, you've seen these come across your desk, but these are important to have. And I know that it's probably difficult sometimes to have a seller produce these beforehand, but you can work with your architect that they can make some assumptions of where this information is. And then kind of give you a 80% picture of what you're expecting to get yourselves into.
I think in Illinois, Vince, correct me, it's not a state requirement. Lenders do not require a survey to close in Illinois, versus like the difference in Florida.
Yeah, Florida's always. Illinois is
Always.
it's not really much of a big deal. Like, it's more of an optional thing. But Florida, the title company makes sure it's ordered and everything. Like, it's
Correct.
done. There's no getting around it, right? Like,
No.
And it's for all those reasons, because of the CCCs, to probably a lot of the Florida properties, it just became a normal thing. Because remember, in Chicago, we got traditional bungalows and houses that have been grandfathered in, and they are what they are. So it's just not one of those things. But it's nice to kind of look at one of those surveys and actually know what those lines means after today.
100%. No, and then you see the fence that your neighbor has is actually encroaching. You're like, hey, what's going on?
I got an extra foot of property line here. We got to talk about this.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it happens a lot more than you'd think.
Sure.
I currently have two projects. One, the neighbor built a patio in their backyard, so they're currently working on that. And then another one, they've got their fire pit in their neighboring property. And it can cause some issues from time to time.
Yeah, no, definitely. We do have another question here, right here. Maria writes, what are the biggest red flags to look for in older properties?
Great question. So in older properties, one of the things that we run into is, we're having a lot of transition from the city of Chicago out to the suburbs. And city of Chicago, they're in a high rise, it's open plan. You get out into the suburbs, especially in these older homes, the wood frame construction doesn't always allow for open plan living. And the spans, the distances of the rooms with the walls, 40 to 60 years ago is actually longer than it is today. And that's because they used old growth wood. And today, our wood is mass produced. And you can clearly see it if you look at the butt end of construction lumber, and we call it grain, and the rings of the tree, in an old growth tree are very tightly packed together. In the new growth tree, very wide open. So structural integrity of those is compromised. And so one of the biggest things to look for, if that's something that a prospective buyer is looking at, is you're going to have to deal with a lot of structural work to go in there. And the other part is, we refer to depth in our floor systems. And, older homes, they could go with shallower depth than what we would need to do today. So we want to look for those. We want to look for any water infiltration. And certainly like larger cracks in a foundation. Typical signs of uneven settlement are diagonal cracks. So if you see any type of diagonal crack, like on a floor plan, it'll typically on an upper floor, you'll most likely see it in the corner of a window going up. That's a sign of an uneven settlement. Vertical cracks in concrete, not ideal, but not structurally alarming. If you're seeing a horizontal crack, that is a sign of structural failure. So you'd want to avoid that. And lastly, as I said also, but just to kind of reiterate on it, is water infiltration. Water is something that I'm sure many of you know, is very difficult to actually find the source. And so you can just be putting Band-Aid on Band-Aid on Band-Aid and not ever actually know where it's coming from. And at a short time in my career, I did forensic architecture, which sounds a lot cooler than what it is, but it was investigating water infiltration in buildings. And what we would find that water would come into a building 30 to 40 feet away from where you were finding signs of it, and it just kind of trickles its way down. So I think the first thing you look for is water, and then second is structural.
No, I appreciate that. And then, are you using the home inspection report to like gather this information, or are you kind of doing your own assessment of the property?
If a home buyer has a home inspection report, always helpful.
Sure.
The more info that we can get, the better. But where we're coming in, a lot of realtors have hired us to do on-site inspections.
Mhm.
So we have a fee for that will come out. We'll take a look at structural systems. We'll look at the foundations, and then we'll put together a report stating this is what our recommendation is. Sometimes it proves not to be a major problem, and others then we're having to look at what we can do to replace certain components of the structure to make the house or commercial building viable.
Got it.
Dante, I want
Great.
to throw two things in if I can. I mean, we can
Yeah.
only, I mean, this is just more to buyers too. You can only perma seal a basement wall so many times, right? Water is probably, to me, one of the biggest red flags. And I think the other thing that consumers need to look at when they're really trying to do this is you have to visualize the space. Why it may not be a necessarily red flag, but if you think it's going to work, and then when you go upstairs to the new addition and you can touch all the bedroom doors at the same size, your design was wrong. It's just kind of one of my opinions. I don't know if Mike wants to touch on that a little bit. And that has to deal with the rules of what you can do when you're doing this with existing homes. And to me, it's like when you spend all this money to do that renovation, you don't want to touch all three bedroom walls or all three bedroom doorways within the same hallway. So the visualization of hiring an expert and doing these other things are crucially important.
Great point, Vince, and that's absolutely, like, from my perspective, is bringing that design professional as soon as that this is something that you're going to look at, because they have that experience. If a homeowner goes into it not having that background of structure, and like, we can get in, we can look at something, but we also know, like, structure's there, electrical is there, mechanicals are there, plumbing is there. So on paper, it might look like a great idea. I see a picture on Houzz or something online, looks like a great idea. I go in there, and then I look at it, and they put in all the mechanicals in one wall. We just finished a project recently where a contractor called me saying, hey, we were going to open up this wall because the homeowner wanted to create a pass through. And when they built the house, they put all of the mechanical systems in that wall. And so you have two choices. You either put in a second mechanical system that we were able to fit into the attic, or you don't do it, and it's understanding. And again, same thing. Homeowner bought the house under contract, or they closed on it, not looking at, into the weeds, the details, so to speak, on what they wanted to do. They had the vision of what they wanted, but they didn't have all the puzzle pieces to get there. And so, again, like, for all of you out there, if you're considering, doing something like this, a brief call with somebody, with technology, we can certainly text each other pictures, send emails, a lot of, especially, with buying and selling of the homes, most of them are all listed with pictures. So, I've had conversations with people where they walk me through on the pictures on Zillow or Redfin. And, I say, yeah, I think that's plausible. And if we get into a situation that's like, it's iffy, have somebody come out there. If like, we charge $200 to go out to a site, you have our time for an hour, it's usually hour and a half. we put together a report so that you have a document to share with the realtor team, the finance team. But again, it's that little bit of investment to protect the big investment down the road.
Don't move the mechanicals if you want to save money. You can fix the cosmetic stuff, but don't move the mechanicals.
Yes.
Just want to give a shout out to Vince with some great insight. Vincent, love how you're steering the conversation. So insightful.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll try it. I try my best.
And then thanks to the whole team for putting this together. So much clarity today. Yeah, I think it's an interesting, situation. And like I said, really from the pandemic, it kind of opened my eyes. And I'm just, I prefer renovation. When me and my wife bought, at least 2 out of the 3 properties, it was all about renovating the property. I don't mind existing homes, but I want to renovate it because I do want to remove the old plumbing. I kind of want to see how everything's put together. And then build it back up the way I want it. And it's almost, I do it for safety. I've seen, fast renovations where, there's no insulation and just all the nonsense that can happen. So I am interested in that. And obviously I have clients that have done new construction homes and, they've wanted to go further and further out, Pingree Grove and all these types of places. So I am interested to see how things are coming together. And this is good stuff.
You better hope your wife's not listening today. You're about to get told that you're moving.
I'm safe bet. She's not listening, so safe bet. Michael, how did they get a hold of you?
You guys can reach me via email at mcarney, CARNEY at Studio Carney. Have the screen up. Also has the general info that goes directly to me. Our website is studiocarney.com. And lastly, our phone number is 847-701-4138. But anybody, this goes to anybody on the cast today. Please reach out with any questions. My role is an educator. I'm also an adjunct professor at Southern Illinois University for the Graduate School of Architecture. I love educating. This is the position I've found myself in. And if you guys have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to share my 25 years experience to help you so that you don't make some of the mistakes that I've been part of and try to fix them as we go along.
No, I appreciate you, Michael. I do have a question. I wrote down, if you could design your dream office or home from scratch, what's the first feature you would add?
Natural ventilation, passive ventilation. I have spent most of my career in corporate office buildings that windows don't open. The only way to open a window is a brick. And, I think for me I love nature, and to be connected with nature is something that's important to me. So for me, it would be an open plan, a lot of natural light, and a direct connection to the outdoors that we can open windows and let that fresh air in. And then one of the quirky things is having an internal courtyard in the building so that we can use it for conference meetings and whatnot, but it's surrounded by the building, but again, open to the elements, and bringing more natural light into the core of the building.
Oh, that's interesting. I knew to ask you a good question that you would definitely let us know. That's interesting.
I daydream about it all the time.
I definitely like the idea of outdoor office space. So just slide the patio doors there and be able to work outside, right? Yes.
And I think that's something, moving forward in architecture. I think that's probably going to be a more prevalent design feature because we've all worked from home, and most of us have had the opportunity to sit at the kitchen table at a minimum and open up the door, or sit out on the back porch, or have that air flow through. Why can't we do that in the office space? Why does it have to be so confined and stuffy?
You actually see it in high-rise city apartment buildings now with the new amenities if you look at new buildings for what was there pre-COVID to what was built now after COVID, you see a lot of, again, co-working spaces, but just literally individual co-working space inside, like in the clubhouse or wherever it is, to the outdoors. Obviously Chicago, we got a little bit of weather, so the outdoors doesn't get as much use. Everyone knows how to reach me. I'm Vince. My email is vince@Epic Mortgage. Dante, I'll turn it over to you.
708-905-5300, 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Appreciate you guys listening this week. Had a great week. Had some great guests. Thank you, Michael. Would love to get you back on again, so we can talk about this. This is great stuff. And I got some other questions for you about blueprints and stuff. So we'll have to do that next time.
I got questions for him too. So the next time he comes on, maybe we talk about what type of trends he sees with retail spaces being converted into condos or apartment living, or why that conversion hasn't really happened yet.
Yeah, so we're going to save that. We're going to table that for next time you're on, Michael. Yep. So that we're forcing you to come back.
You know what, guys? Dante and Vincent, thank you very much. This was awesome. And anytime you guys want me on, let me know, and I'll make it happen.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You. Hey,
thank you, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, I hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll be back better than ever. Vince, you and me on Monday?
You and me on Monday, buddy.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Everyone have a good week. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.